Welcome, dreamers, to a session where you are going to walk away with the most incredible, tangible steps to be able to make everything that you've learned this weekend an actual reality in your life. Today, I, Chelsea Joe, am going to take you on a journey to be able to take everything that you've learned, the wheel that is inside of your planner, and put it into action. Because the most important thing is not that we have dreams, but that we put one foot in front of the other and make them actually happen. Like I said, my name is Chelsea Joe, and I am the owner of chelseajoe.co. I teach time blocking and task management for really, really busy women, moms, and big dreamers like myself and like you. How to implement, how to make systems every single day and all of the nooks and crannies of their life so that everything that they are juggling can become a source of excitement and joy, and their work and their dreams can become mission work, not for ourselves, but for the creator that put purpose in your life. I want to welcome you to the next 30 or 40 minutes where we're going to be going through an incredible resource, which is my workbook that I call the Fundamental Needs. It's an assessment and a workbook that parallels Polly's wheel inside of the planner so very well. I want to take you a step deeper, one step further into becoming the woman that you desire to be and that God has called you to be. I want you to have tangible steps that make it very simple and not overwhelming to accomplish the goals that you set up and the dreams that you establish inside of this beautiful product. Aren't we so excited about the 2021 Dream Planner? I know I am. I am a personal user of this planner. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. Everything that Polly puts out. Horacio printing is just such a blessing. But so where do we put all of these things that we've been dreaming up and that we've been writing down this entire weekend? Where do we put them in our lives? And how do we actually make it happen? There's this notion of self-care that everyone talks about. And inside of my teachings and on my podcast, I teach very thoroughly and in depth about how to create time for us and how we have to fill our own cups to the point to where they're overflowing. And we can give that to the people that come into our community, to the people that we're called to serve, either our children or our spouses, our home, our churches, the community around us. So whatever that looks like for you, it is so unbelievably important that you, like Polly says, you dream in all directions, not just for this one big lofty goal that you have, but for yourself as a whole being. And that is what my Fundamental Needs workbook is going to teach you. It's going to teach you how to take everything that is in that wheel and put it into action. So I'm going to give you actual examples today of how to put this down inside of your 2021 Dream Planner. So what do you say? Let's get started. If you haven't already downloaded the workbook, I want you to do that. And it looks a little something like this. I printed it out and we're going to go through it together. Here's what you need to know. All of the steps that are inside of here are a guide for you to be able to understand the innermost, deepest why behind the action items that you want to put inside of your planner. So after you've gone through the wheel and you've looked at every single one of these individual pieces of the pie, I like to call them, all the sections of the wheel here, and you've filled this out and you've penciled in which direction you feel like one is really full and one is really lacking, I want you to then come over into this workbook and we're going to go through these questions, okay? So this is how you're going to guide yourself through each stage of this to pull out one specific action item that's going to grow you into a piece of that pie that's fully shaded in. And the way that I have broken this down is to say in each one of these categories that you're either feeling discouraged, or really encouraged? And there's 5 little dots instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's more of a feeling that we get. We know that we're feeling discouraged when we think about our finances, or we're just like, it is what it is, or we feel really encouraged. And so this is going to help you with every single question in here. And for some of you, there's a block in here that says parenting. I have a question for you if you're a parent. If you're not a parent yet, that's okay. What are your responsibility buckets? That I teach responsibility buckets. So what are the things that you are responsible for? What are you, the person that's in charge of all of these things on your plate? What are those main responsibilities? Is it an older family member? Or maybe it's your pets? Maybe it's your community. You need to know what your responsibility buckets are. I've broken these down into major categories for most of us women. Some of you might not be moms. Some of you might not even be married yet, and that's totally fine. You can still use this to help you gauge where you're at and the responsibilities that you have, and add your own responsibility bucket on here. If not every single one of these fits you perfectly. The first one says, when I interact with paying my bills, purchasing items, or any financial conversations, I feel. And I want you to really think about that. How do you feel when you think about sitting down and talking about your finances with someone? How does that make you feel? Do you feel like you don't even want to touch it with a 10-foot pole? Or do you feel good about it? And mark down your answer. For physical, when I get dressed, run with my kids or my pets, look in the mirror and face my body, I feel. This can be really hard for women, but you have to be honest with yourself. These questions are not meant to be easy, and they're not meant to be light, something that you just put a random answer to. It's meant for you to really sit down and dive deep, because this is going to allow us to pull out very, very, very tangible steps to put into our week every single week. We're going to create a system out of this paper that allows you to have sustainable self-care. That thing that fills up your cup so much that it's overflowing and making all of the other little cups that you have, all of your other little responsibilities, fill up because you're overflowing. You're coming from a place of incredible joy, so much so that everything and everyone that is around you feels that. So please take just a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, to answer these questions very, very, very candidly. Another one, your spouse or your partner. When I interact with my significant other, I regularly feel. How do you feel? This can be a hard one for those of us that are struggling. And this can be a source of real excitement for those of us that have worked long and hard on our marriages or our relationships or our partnerships. And in parenting, at the end of every day, I look at the way I've treated my children and I feel. If you are a mom, this question is vital. So make sure that you answer that one thoroughly. And in the spiritual bucket, which when the deepest part of who I am meets me every morning, it makes me feel. And I love the way that this question is worded. When you wake up in the morning, when you meet yourself in that quiet space, how do you feel? Discouraged, meh, or encouraged? And your spirit and your emotional. When I am met with quiet moments during the day, the thoughts in my mind make me feel. And the last one is our house, our space of dwelling. My house is a place that makes me feel. How does it make you feel? I want you to write that down. So this is where it gets fun. In each box on the next page here, it says brainstorm at the top. It says write down how you rated yourself for that topic from an assessment, and then address why. Why do you feel that way? This is a step you cannot skip. You have to know why you're feeling that way, because that is where we're going to get the answers on what we're actually going to do with this beautiful planner and what we're going to be putting in it to make sure that we can sustain ourselves in a way that actually allows us to accomplish those really big dreams that we have. The next page is the outcome, okay? So I want you to make sure that you have taken just a few minutes and you've written down exactly why. And then from there, I want you to write down 1 or 2 specific tasks that you think would pull you up to encouraged in the places where you're feeling discouraged. Now, when you wrote down why for the places that you were feeling encouraged, use that as a guide to help you. Well, the reason why I'm feeling really encouraged in my marriage is because we're communicating well. We're taking the time to have date night. What are the things that you're doing in that bucket, in that responsibility bucket, that are making you feel encouraged? And apply that to where you're feeling discouraged. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be because of where you put your time and your intention. And that is what's so beautiful about where we're going next, is how to make time for it and how to create intention behind these specific tasks that we're going to establish and get them in the planner. I'm going to show you mine too here in just a second. So how about what we do next is we set just 5 minutes on the clock, okay? And I will go ahead and record and start a timer for 5 minutes. And then I want you to fill this out. I want you to look at what are these specific tasks that you're going to be doing. Physical. I'm feeling really discouraged. What do you need to do? Do you need to eat better? Do you need to have specific prayer meditation, a specific Bible verse that makes you feel better about the body that you're living in? Do you need to work out multiple times a week, or maybe just start stretching every morning? What is that one specific task that you want to do that will help you feel encouraged? You can write down a couple ideas, but we're only going to pick one after we're done with this exercise. So let me go ahead and pop on a timer, and let's get started with this. All right, here we go. I'm going to fill out mine too while we're at it. Okay, so let's look at what we came up with. You should have a couple different specific tasks in each one of these buckets filled out of things that you would like to do to pull you closer to encouraged in each of these areas. And the great thing about how Polly has the planner set up, and what I would always really encourage you to do, and one of the reasons I fell in love with her planner is because there's room for this every single season, and you should do this every single season because things change and things come up. Sometimes our seasons in life are really, really long, and sometimes they're really short. Sometimes they fall with the seasons that are coming and going, and it does happen quarterly. But a great way to assess where you are is to sit down and actually do the quarterly assessments inside of the planner and come back to this often. This does not have to be set in stone. Anytime I work with other moms or other women, and sometimes dads too, come to me, uh, they get really hung up, and I don't want you to get hung up on making this perfect and saying, oh, I have to pick the right one in order to make this better. Anything you do brings intentions to this, and so nothing is going to be the wrong one. Any of them can work really, really well for you, and all you have to do is come back to it and revise it. And if you look here in the directions, it says to just pick one thing and start there for a couple weeks, look at it every week, and then come back to it. So what do we do with these? Okay, so the next page, page 6, I want you to name each one of those, okay? And I don't want you to have a list of more than 10 more than 10 things, okay? Because then it gets to be a little bit too much to manage. I have 8, and the 8 that I choose to do and have been doing for a very long time, I call the Great 8. My husband actually coined this, and we do this together. We get this on our calendar every single week, and that's where we're going to go as soon as this is done. I'm going to show you how to get this into your planner and your calendar, your digital Google Calendar, okay? So my first fundamental need that I have that fits my spiritual and financial bucket is my Sunday sit down. This is where Blaine and I, my husband and I, sit down and we plan out everything that we have to do for the week. We get all of our specific commitments, like if we have a meeting to be at, if we have our job that we have to go to, whatever that looks like, that gets in the calendar. And in the Sunday sit down, I also get our fundamental needs. So all 8 of these get put down in the calendar as well. And then we also do some financial planning. We go through our envelopes and we do all that kind of stuff. My second one is the gym. And so that taps into my physical bucket, and that piece of the pie inside of the wheel. And I have a goal to get to the gym 3 times a week. I also have a cleaning house, because that's very important to me. When my house is clean, I feel like the world is well, and it's a place where I can dwell. It's a place where I can receive information from the Holy Spirit. It's a place where I can nurture my children. It's a place where I can rejuvenate myself. It's a place where I can pour into all the things that I've been called to do. That is my home, and it's important for me to have it clean. So every single week, it is a fundamental need that I spend 2 hours. You may spend 3 hours, you may spend 1 hour a week, whatever that is that you need. But the important part is that when you look through the tasks that you set aside, the activity that we just did and we just spent 5 minutes on, that you pull out one thing. And if it's cleaning the house, if it's cleaning the toilets, whatever that looks like in your house block there, that bucket or that batch, that you pull one thing out and you give it a name. So my name is Clean House, okay? And that week when we go to clean the house, we may be doing toilets that week, or we may be doing bed sheets that week. But the point is that I'm pouring into my house 2 hours a week. That's a fundamental need for me. The other is personal time. And this is when I work on the dreams that I have. This is when I work on my business. This is when I work on the things that I feel called to do. Then I have date night, which is one of my favorite. We do that every single week, and it's not always fancy, but it is time unplugged from our phones and unplugged from the world around us, where we make eye contact and we communicate with one another. We talk and we experience joy. We laugh, we play, we do games, we do something fun together. Then we have a family fun, where we do the same thing, that same concept with our family. I also have a meal prep, which meets my physical and financial bucket, because if I don't meal prep, I'm out to eat a bazillion times a week. And I know you know how that goes. Where's the closest Chipotle or Chick-fil-A, friends? Because mom does not know what's for dinner, right? And then my last one is a to-do list. So this has been very, very monumental for me and for my husband. And I think that a lot of people look over this, but sometimes we have a to-do list. It feels like it's never ending. And for me, it was really important to know that that list was getting shorter instead of longer. So every single week I put a block of time in my calendar, either a solid 2 hours or 1 hour on one day and 1 hour on another day, where I just do the things that are on my personal to-do list. So now let's talk about, how do we get this inside of our beautiful planner? Once this session has ended, there's going to be images. So you can actually like zoom in and you can look at how I do my time blocking and how I get these specific fundamental needs in my planner and in my calendar. I do want to break down for you a little bit about this Sunday sit down. That is one of my fundamental needs. And I had spoken to you briefly about what that looks like, where I plan out my week. And I do a hybrid method that I absolutely love, and I would totally recommend it. I have a podcast episode that's all on it. If you want to dive deeper into that, you can. My podcast, by the way, is called Systemize Your Life with Chelsea Joe, and it is amazing. Absolutely go listen to it. If you love all things paper planners and time blocking and systems so that you have enough time and intention and energy to chase your dreams, then you will absolutely love the podcast. But this hybrid system that I do allows me to use my paper planner to focus on my blocks of time so that my brain starts thinking every single week in blocks. This is what I'm in, this is where I'm focusing. Because one of the biggest issues that we all run into is feeling scattered, feeling a lack of focus. And what I want to be able to give you as you walk away from this incredible weekend is some serious focus. I want you to be able to know at this time of day, every single day, or every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this is what I'm focusing on. And then I'm going to show you how to put your fundamental needs inside of that. Let me give you a brief little look at what this looks like. And I do have examples of it in the horizontal and the vertical layout, which is really cool. I personally choose the vertical layout. It works in my brain a little bit better, but either layout totally works with time blocking. And the other section of my hybrid, part one, is the paper planner where I put all of my time blocks. And hybrid means there's two things, right? So the second one is my Google Calendar, anywhere that I have to be, right? If I have to show up somewhere, I put it in my Google Calendar, from where I'm taking my kids, when I have a work meeting, an appointment for myself, an appointment for my husband, an appointment for the dog, an appointment for whatever. I put it in the Google Calendar, and my husband shares that Google Calendar with me. That way he knows how to support me, and vice versa. When he puts something on his calendar, even though it has nothing to do with me, I want to see it, because I want to be able to pray for him. I want to be able to ask him, hey, how is this such and such that you had today? How did that meeting go with that investor? Or how did that meeting go with your boss? I want to be able, and I want him to be able to do the same thing with me. My husband is a firefighter and he's gone for many hours, and I want him to see what the kids are doing throughout the day. So if they have a softball, if my oldest one has softball practice, it's in the calendar, even if he's not going to be able to be there. And even though I know that every Monday and every Friday at 4:30 we have softball practice, it doesn't matter. It goes in the calendar because it's so important. It's a brilliant way to be able to communicate with one another and to grow intention and responsibility on each other's on our own, and not be dependent on each other to constantly be feeding information to the other person. And that also allows me to not have a ton of information jam-packed in my planner, and I can just use it for time blocking. So this here is a beautiful example of how I go about getting this information inside of my paper planner. So I have a 5-block system that I loved to use. And I have worked inside of the home and I've worked outside of the home. I've worked a corporate job and I've worked for myself, and it works either way. Sometimes your time blocks, these 5 blocks, are just going to be bigger or smaller. The time that you spend in each block will be a little bit different for each person. But I have my morning routine And there is different examples of time blocking inside of this workbook. And then there's a space for you to practice, because I know there's so many of us that do not want to mess up these beautiful planners. But I will tell you, do not be afraid to mess up your planner. Use it. Don't be so intimidated by the beauty of these pages that you don't want to write anything in it. You have to start somewhere. And so if you get it totally wrong and the first week's horrible, don't worry about it. It's sitting back there. My planner from 2020, it looks different almost every single week, and that's okay. It's a tool. This is a tool for us to be able to draw closer to the person that we were crafted to be. And so don't be afraid to use it. Don't be afraid to get in there and write a couple time blocks out. Experiment with it, test it out. How's it going this week? And then next week on your Sunday sit down, which I hope that becomes one of your fundamental needs, I want you to look at it and say, what worked? What didn't work? Do I like the way I highlighted that? Did it make it messy? Did it make it unclear? I want you to look at that, okay? So my 5 block system is these 5 blocks. I'm gonna show it to you on my fingers. So I have a morning routine and a nighttime routine, okay? And then I have my AM block, my midday block, and my PM block. And for me, that works really well. And I've taught it to my children, and everyone's kind of on that schedule in our house. And for some of you, your AM block and your midday block may be your 9 to 5. You may be out working that job, or some of you might be homeschooling your kiddos during that time, or some of you might be doing that entire stretch because your kids are in school, working your business from home. Whatever that looks like for you, you can still apply this 5 block system. The routines and where your fundamental needs fit inside of that is the important part. So when you sit down to block out your fundamental needs, they're actually going to live. My fundamental needs are all in orange. So every week you're going to sit down and you're going to take all of your fundamental needs. Now listen, we're going to get to this. Well, what if I only have one? What if I have too many? We're going to talk about that in just a second. You're going to put them down on your planner, where they're living and on what day. And I want you to highlight them all in a specific color. And that color is going to be the color for your fundamental needs. You're also going to put them in your Google Calendar. Why do you have to do it twice? Because these are important. This is how we fill our cups. And when we stop taking time for ourselves and giving it everywhere else, we deplete our ability to do the best work that we've been called to do. We cannot rise to the level that we have been called to rise to if we are not putting ourselves first. Yes, I truly believe that focusing on who you are and what these dreams are that you took the times to plan out in your planner are the most important thing. And I know we get sucked into serving and giving and giving and giving, and do those things, but make time for you first. And when you sit down and you solidify all of these fundamental needs for you, this should be what dictates your time, not everyone and everything else. What I know for sure is that we are in control of our time, and everyone has the same 24 hours a day. And you get to choose what you do with your time. And you should be choosing that everything that you do with your time is a direct impact that gets you one step closer to the dreams that you have for yourself in all areas and every portion of that wheel. And if you are choosing to do things that don't bring you closer to encouraged and don't help you color in that full wheel, then what are you really doing? It's so important that we bring intentions to our time and to our space, because that is how we become the hands and the feet, and we do our mission work, and we draw closer to the journey and the dreams and the desires and this life that we see for ourselves and that God has designed for each and every one of us. So get these fundamental needs in your Google Calendar and put them on your paper planner. Now they live inside of your time block, okay? They will live inside of your time block. So for me, a lot of times my date night is on Wednesday nights, and it lives inside of my PM block and my nighttime routine block. It just gets replaced. That's what I'm doing in that block of time. My to-dos that 2-hour block of to-dos that I talked to you about that I have and I have to do every single week so I don't go crazy, that lives inside of my AM block most of the time. And if my kids are in school, then they come with me. That is where that space lives. Now, here is another example of what this looks like in the vertical layout. You can see here that I have all of my 5 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This pink block right here represents my fundamental need for personal time. This is my midday block, and these are my personal time, my work hours, where I work on my podcast and I work on chelseajoe.co. I work on my company, I work on my business. Now, it didn't always look like that. I have been an interpreter outside of the home for 15 years, and I'm doing a small shift. The global pandemic affected my job in such a way where I started interpreting from home and working from home. And so sometimes these blocks don't look beautiful, and most days they aren't identical. And that's okay. That's the beauty of having this incredible tool that just feels good in your hands, doesn't it? Polly really knows what she's doing with this. And it allows you to ebb and flow. The most important part is that you take this and you put all of those fundamental needs inside of your paper planner. Okay. So you can see that this is where my Sunday sit down lives, and all of my other fundamental needs are here in orange. You can also write in your routines. If you have a specific routine in your morning routine block, in your nighttime routine block, and you want to get better at it, if there's something inside of your fundamental need, like you really want to start every morning with yoga or some type of stretching or some type of prayer meditation, scripture meditation, whatever that looks like for you, write that in. Use this as a tool to start programming your brain what it is that you want to see happen. Write down those specific tasks, that one task for that one fundamental need that you want to see come to life. Now, I hope so much that all this information has been incredibly meaningful to you. I would love it if you would come and you would reach out to me so I can support you through this. This has been such a beautiful experience for me being involved in the Dreamers Summit, and it would mean so much to me to answer your questions and to give you the support that you need. You can find me obviously on Instagram and Facebook or through the podcast Systemize Your Life. I have an incredible Facebook group where I actually show this specific paper planner, and I do planner audits. I help women get this down pat in their life every single week. Just go over to Facebook, type in Systemize Your Life, and you will find the group. It has been such a beautiful experience being here with you today, and I wish you all the best. I will keep all of you and this entire community in my prayers. It was so great to meet all of you. Take care.